Hi, this is Liberty Wellness with your host, me, Rebecca Stuart. I'm so excited you're here to join me today. This is our first podcast, so kind of like a first date in a ways to see if things will work out with us, huh? Treading the waters, as you could say, in how this series is going to go. I started this podcast because I had several of my students ask me for more information. I mean, what high school student asks for more homework? So instead of packing information into more curriculum for them, I decided maybe to invite guests on and share their stories, and it would be a little bit more entertaining and it can be considered extra credit. That's right. I have written and launched a high school homeschool health course. Say that 10 times fast. I'm a national board certified nutritional therapy practitioner that has an online clinic, and I work with clients one-on-one, but my health class is kind of a real passion project of mine. I love working with high schoolers and teaching them the basics of health. Something I would really love to communicate through this podcast to you is the beautiful intricacy between healing the body, the soul, and the spirit. We are made of 3 parts. Now, in my health class, it's purely science. We don't go religion, faith, or anything like that. But in this space, I really want to be able to emphasize the importance of the fact that we are really made of 3 parts, body, soul, and spirit, and to use this as a way to encourage your faith and to boost your hope and to bring maybe, I don't know, a new sense of motivation or ignite a new fuel within you to try new things, believe new things, and hope new things. My health journey started honestly kind of young. My dad was a research scientist, and my earliest memories are of helping him as a 2-year-old at University of Texas in the lab, holding mice by the tail while he would shave them to prepare them for research projects. My earliest memories revolve around going to the pig farm to help him, whatever. I would just stand there and watch and be amazed at the hundreds of pigs or whatever. It seemed like hundreds of pigs, probably was like 10 to like 3-year-old at the time. My parents were determined that I was going to be a doctor, coming from a very science researchy background type family. They all saw my curiosity and thought maybe I'll be a doctor. I don't know. When I was a kid, I couldn't care what I wanted to be when I wanted to grow up. The only thing I knew I wanted to be was a mom. Being a mom was like, that was my heart call right there. Really wanted to be a mom. Being a doctor was kind of like, meh, whatever. It kind of sounded kind of cool. It wasn't until I was entering high school and my parents were like, you need to start taking seriously what you're going to do after you graduate, and you really need to think about preparing for going to university and going to med school and becoming a doctor. Well, it was around that same age where I developed a hand tremor. And if you're watching the video, you'll see this is not exaggerated. This is my hands. They shake. So if you're ever seeing my videos shake or my hands shake, it's just, I'm sorry, I apologize. But that was kind of the deciding factor that I was not going to make a very good doctor, because nobody wants to get poked and cut and worked on by some shaky hands. That's when I knew, okay, that was not the route for me. And it was my senior year of high school when I really fell in love with Jesus, and a friend and I we started a Bible study in our high school, and it kind of just started off with just me and my brother, who was a freshman, and him and his 2 sisters. So it was the 5 of us, and by the end of the first semester, it grew to 40 kids, and it just multiplied after that. And it was that year that I really felt this amazing passion stirring inside of me just to tell the world about how amazing Jesus is, because my life was coming alive like nothing else. I explain it to my kids, when you eat a potato chip, you can eat just one potato chip. You have to eat the whole bag, right? And that's what the word, the Bible, and kind of my relationship with Jesus became like I got a taste of it, and I got so hungry for more, and I got hungry to be around others and to share Jesus with others, not in a religious way, but in a life way, because I experienced healings and miracles and the power of God at work in ways that blew my mind regularly. It was after high school, I decided to go on the mission field full time. My first trip was to Honduras, and I'm going to give you a couple little anecdotes, but all I can say, what I learned from that was that when you really do step out and are courageous and obey the Lord in big steps, the enemy, you have an enemy. His name is Satan, and he does not like it. 2 days before I was supposed to leave for my first international big step of faith, I was thrown from a horse and I almost died. I should have died. And during that trip, I almost died 3 more times. Oh my goodness. I honestly don't know how I made it back home alive from that trip. It's funny. It was that time I was 18 and I started to really think, man, if I make it to 21, I'm going to be doing really good. And it was on my 21st birthday where I really seriously rejoiced that I was still alive because of the amount of attempts on my life over and over again through the period of me really trusting God, walking out in faith and obedience, and really seeing God move in miraculous ways. Not only was my life, the attempts on my life were many and surprising, but I also got arrested once in another country for having Bibles. So when the enemy couldn't take out my life, he tried to put me behind bars. That he wasn't too successful on. We were actually kind of expecting that. We were prepared, and that's going to be a whole episode itself. I cannot wait to tell you what it's like to be arrested in another country and be held and watch God move and work through you in that place. It was actually really, really cool. It was one of those times when you realize that the enemy has plans for evil, but man, God he just totally turns everything around to make it good. He can make anything good, and he can work anything to his advantage. And God really used that time to stir the hearts of those around us and use us as a way to just love on those around us. It was really cool. Anyway, I'm really excited about that story. There's lots of stories, but that one in particular is really cool. I did go home for a period to try and honor my parents to go back to university. They really wanted me to go to school. That was really hard for me to do, but I really was trying so hard to honor them. And I went back to college for a semester, and it was funny. God dropped me in the middle of the small international student group, and that helped soothe my heart being there a little bit by becoming friends with people from all over the world and getting to love on them and help them adjust to American life or life in America. But it just really wasn't for me. So school just wasn't for me. So I went back and did a 3-month intensive Bible course to prepare to go do another stint overseas. And it was that was outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And that's where I met my husband. He's from England, and we ended up on the same team together after that to China. And oh my goodness, yes, again, attempts on our life. It's really wild what happens when you step out in faith and you become almost invisible. We experienced kind of like a cloak of invisibility as we smuggled Bibles. We were followed by undercover police. We had to be really careful. We got the things that we were able to do while we were there was substantial. And helping the locals there. It was fascinating. I can't wait to have my husband on here. We will share that how we got together, because our marriage, I call it a God-arranged marriage. I live in an arranged marriage. It's really cool. It's really cool when God picks out your spouse for you and arranges your marriage. It sets you up for life. It's amazing. And the story is very humbling for me because I was stubborn, and God is very gentle and patient and kind. But while we were in China and I'm having the time of my life ministering, finally free, like, yay, finally serving the Lord, and I'm actually getting engaged, and it's like the most romantic thing in a season of my life. And then I get really, really sick. It wiped me out. So I experienced some traditional Chinese medicine and some conventional Chinese medicine. It was phenomenal. Got me back on my feet within a couple of days. And then I really, after coming home from that trip, really struggled to get over jet lag. Now, jet lag, they say, for every hour of time difference, you give yourself a day to adjust, right? So it was like 12-hour time difference for jet lag. So I was like, okay, 12 days should be a good amount of time to kind of adjust my body clock and get back to like life again, right? Well, 3, 4 weeks after being home, I was still sluggish. I was extremely fatigued and I was really struggling. So my mom did take me to the doctor and I had a really bad case of mono. I did have the ulcers all up in my mouth, down my throat. I could barely eat or drink anything. It had to be either freezing cold or really hot. And my liver was so inflamed that the doctor could barely find the end of it into my hip. The doctor said I couldn't lay on my side. I could rupture it. I had to be careful bending over. In fact, she was like, please do not bend over. Be careful standing and sitting up. I was really, really sick. It took me about a year or two to actually recover from that. And in the meantime, I went back overseas. I got married. I tried my best with what I had. I was moving at like half my rate though that I was before. But I still had the determination just to keep going, right? Because when you're 19, 20 years old, you keep going. I don't know, keep going. That prefrontal cortex isn't completely developed yet. So my logic wasn't completely there, right? To just say, slow down, Rebecca. It wasn't until after we got married and we struggled to get my husband's green card because we were missionaries. We lived in like way below poverty level of income. I couldn't sponsor him. I couldn't get him a green card. So his religious worker visa was expiring and we had to move back to England. So we moved back there for a couple of years. We had our daughter there. And it was while we lived there that I discovered juicing and eating clean and feeling better, and using food to really bring back my energy. I then, we came home right after Emma was born, or back to the United States, stayed with my parents. We kind of got some jobs. We got plugged into some local ministries, but kind of started hitting the grind of raising a family and in a different way than just full-time ministry. We ended up having another little boy, a few years later, and it was that birth that kind of knocked me off my feet. I could not snap out of whatever it was that I experienced during the pregnancy and the birth. It was very hard on me. And what I didn't realize at the time, what I know now, is that I had reactivated the virus that I got while I was in China. So the virus that I had kind of gone dormant. I had put it basically in remission, but there was complicating circumstances in my environment and in my health, and it was just too much stress on my body and it reactivated the virus. I didn't know that at the time. So my doctor put me on antidepressants, just put me on some pain meds, and really didn't have any answers. Started sending me to other specialists. And this is when I really started to learn that our doctors are very limited. They're great in certain situations, like I will go to the emergency room for true emergencies for anything, acute things, broken bones, heart attacks. Like they have amazing specialties, but when it comes to the aches and the pains and the daily chronic health issues, or even environmental issues or toxin issues or molds or parasites or anything like that, doctors just don't have what it takes. They're just not trained. It's not their fault. They're just not trained in those areas and they just don't know. And so I spent like 7 years being, sent and tossed from one doctor to another, gaslit. I was told it was all in my head, psychosomatic. I was crazy, but I was in so much pain and I could barely move for a long time. Basically became dependent on tramadol, a pain reliever, Flexerol, a muscle relaxer, just to keep moving as a mom. At the time too, they convinced me to go on this particular pain med because it was supposedly non-habit forming and was not addicting and perfectly safe. Well, that was all a lie. They didn't know, but it was all a lie. That's a whole nother story. Going off pain meds is going off drugs and having the worst experience ever, like akathisia, brain zaps. You see bugs crawling all over your skin and all over the walls, hallucinating, and the pain. And it was bad going off those babies, but I'm so glad I was able to do it eventually. Anyway, where was I? I was talking about the birth of my son, being gaslit by doctors, and then, while living in that house, we were all kind of sick all the time, like just all of us, the whole family. And my husband had never been sick before. Like, he had an iron stomach, and I'd never seen him throw up. We'd been together for quite a while at that point, and I had started a childcare in the house to help make ends meet. And one day, one of the babies that I was caring for died in my arms suddenly. Just sudden onset pneumonia. And yeah, he wouldn't wake up from his nap. And when I got him, fluid was just pouring out of his nose and mouth. It was really, really scary. That's a whole nother podcast with the full details. That was also the same season where I was stepping back into a more full-time ministry position. I was stepping up at church in the international ministry as a representative for all of the work with Central Asia. And I was also working with a local ministry here in the city and with international students. And at the same time, kind of my life blows up. It's funny. When you step out in obedience, it's kind of the theme of my life. When I step out in obedience, I just kind of hold my breath. And the enemy did. He tried to put me behind bars again. The state tried to go after me for murder. And I had people in my life trying to take my children away. It was a mad season. I mean, through that season, we learned that we were living actually in a really toxic home. We had very high chances. Our house that we had built was built with toxic Chinese drywall. We also learned that the state came in and shut down our water company because our wells had not been maintained in over 30 years. 30 years. We had toxic red algae growing in our wells, all kinds of, our water was disgusting. And we finally had answers. So we had been living at that point for like 5 years with really toxic water, drinking, bathing, cleaning, all the things in that. We were breathing in toxic drywall. And then also what we started to learn is that we had unknowingly built our home on an illegal toxic waste dump. So yeah, we kind of had a really nasty trifecta. Lots of things from that experience that we learned. And so we actually ended up declaring bankruptcy and giving the house to the bank because we couldn't in good conscience sell the house and put any other family or person through the hell that we had walked through living in that space. I had gathered all of our health documents, all of our testing. We had all tested positive for extreme toxicity, extreme heavy metal toxicity. The doctor even was amazed that Jacob, my son, was even awake and alive. They thought that he would be at least autistic or dependent on some type of full-time medical care. The only real side effect or symptom that he had that was weird and really pointed to the heavy metals was the fact that as his teeth grew in as a baby, they had loads of cavities. And I was just told I was a bad mom and I wasn't taking good care of my son's teeth. But when we finally got to a real pediatric dental specialist, she went in and looked at his teeth and she said, "Oh my goodness, they're rotting from the inside out." So my poor baby boy had dentures because she ended up having to take most of his teeth out at the age of 2 because they were rotting from the inside out because the heavy metals, it goes after your bones. It goes after your tissues, but really likes bones. So we couldn't in good conscience at all let anybody else live in that house. So we gave it to the bank. We gave them all of our medical bill paperwork. We gave them all the knowledge that we had of the drywall, the water, the land, everything, all the testing. We had neighbors testing their soil. We had neighbors testing their water, all kinds of things. We gathered it all up and we gave it to the bank and we said, look, we don't have the capacity to go after to get this house condemned. We don't have the finances to try and fight that, but you do. You can try and get the house condemned and see if you can get the insurance money on it. Because I was done. I was just like, get me out of here. And within the first 6 months after moving out of that house, I did learn about some nutrition supplements and started sneaking more nutrient dense foods into my kids' diets. And they grew 6 inches in 6 months. 6 inches in 6 months. My kids, once labeled failure to thrive, were now growing fast. I could not keep up with shoes and clothes. We did a lot of Goodwill and a lot of consignment runs those years. And then their appetites grew astronomically for fresh fruits and veggies, which my kids were all about the junk food. They all like the hamburgers, the cheeseburgers, the pizza, the chicken nuggets, the hot dogs, and the macaroni and cheese. I don't know if you can relate. I just figured those are typical kid foods. Well, they are typical kid foods, but they wanted their veggies too, which was weird. Their bodies were craving nutrients. Anyway, so we had some great years. We were growing, we were healing, we were moving on. We moved a couple times from there. We learned homeschooling was for us amongst those moves. I didn't want to, we hopped from a couple different rentals to trying to find out where we were going to live next. And instead of moving children from school to school, we decided to homeschool. Best choice ever, especially for my son. My goodness, learning how to homeschool a little girl and a little boy are two completely different experiences, and one of the best choices we ever made. They did go to public school for a while, and it just, for my daughter, she did thrive in it. She's a great student. My son, well, he's a boy. He just needed to move, and he didn't thrive in a brick and mortar school. So we had to get really creative, and we had a lot of fun with it. We were thriving and doing great. That's when the Lord started to say, hey, you guys, I blessed you. It's time for you to be a blessing again. And so as a family, we spent some serious time praying about next steps, and the Lord put it on our hearts to move to Europe and to work with refugees. So we quit our jobs. We sold and gave away everything we had except for what we could fit in 8 suitcases and a couple carry-ons, and including homeschool material. Oh my goodness, that was like a whole suitcase itself. And we moved to Europe for a year, and we worked with refugees, we worked with Romani gypsies, and we helped volunteers with refugees, and we just had the best time. We thought we were going to be going over there for good. Like, we're solid. We're here. We actually landed in this beautiful village next to Corinth. So you know that book in the Bible called Corinthians? Well, we lived right next to Corinth in a little town called Latraki, and it was seriously home away from home. And we absolutely fell in love with the people, with the area, and with everything about it. And we were sold. This is it. This was our new way of living. Our next big chapter. But God had other plans. Just when you think you get things figured out in life, there's always a wrench. There's always a change. There's always something. My son, who was really stoked about going and handled the move there really, really well, just wasn't thriving. Something was off. Something was wrong. And the Lord did lead us to come back home again. And I'm really glad that he did, because soon after we actually made it back to the States is when my son started having serious cardiac episodes. And so I'm really grateful that we were here and we were home and we had insurance and we had close, easy access to really great doctors to help us figure out neurological stuff, cardiovascular stuff, and help get him the help that he needed. So if we would have stayed, it would have been very challenging because our village was pretty far from medical care. In fact, all the locals said after we moved there, don't get sick, don't need a hospital because it's 2 hours to Athens. And so we just prayed the whole time we were there that nobody would get sick. But we also learned a lot of really cool ways to take care of our health while we were there, so we didn't need hospitals or doctors' care. So yeah, we came home, we helped Jacob get his health back in gear. Kids were getting involved in community again. My husband and I worked with a house prayer house ministry. I also worked with a ministry that helped rehabilitate girls rescued out of sex trafficking. I was really not really into, that's a wrong word of saying that. I love healing prayer ministry. I love teaching the Bible, and those were the two things that I got to do with these girls, and they taught me so much. We were there for a little while, and then again, changes happened again. We kind of lost all of our financial support at the time, so again, sometimes God calls you to move in different ways that you just don't expect. So my husband actually ended up going back to school at Bethel Tech and become a computer programmer, coder, techie guy thing now. Nerd, which is really nice because he works from home. It's awesome. And then I went back to driving the school bus and continued homeschooling my kids, which then gave us some time to just really recover as a family, recuperate, heal, and grow, and focus on getting my kids the schooling that they need, the resources that they need. And through that time, we experienced a lot of health ups and downs with the kids. And you'll hear me talk a lot about that. I've been a guest on a couple of other podcasts and have shared more of those stories, but it was really through working with my kids that I had the amazing ability to witness the quick turnaround power of nutrition on a person's life and how substantial it is. We were trying to be healthy. We were trying to do the right things. I was listening to all the experts out there on podcasts and all the documentaries on Netflix and reading all the articles. And so we were vegan for 3 years. Our family were raw vegan. We were pretty firm in our veganism. And we were trying really, really hard to be healthy, get healthy, but we were getting more sick. My daughter started experiencing some mental spiral moments. And after going to the doctor, getting some blood work, some neurotransmitter work done, like just some labs, seeing everything tanked and everything was down on the floor, really. All of her results we were like, something's not right. And I asked the doctor, what can we do to help get her blood markers and her health back in order? And the response was, well, let's just try an antidepressant. And I was like, well, that's kind of a Band-Aid that's not really going after the cause. Like, I would like to fix what's causing the problem here. They didn't have any answers for me. They didn't know. And so that's when I went into full, like, okay, I have got to figure this out mode. And we just kept praying and asking the Lord for wisdom and discernment, because I was trying my best. I was trying to figure it out, but I'm just a mom. I'm just a mom like every other American mom with, no background. And I took a physiology class in high school, but that was the extent of my understanding of the body. Like, I knew food helped and just healthy food, but we were eating healthy foods, or at least I thought we were. So in my desperation, one morning, it was like 4:30 in the morning. I was driving to work to drive my bus. And I kept hearing the Lord say, carnivore, carnivore, carnivore. Like, this word just kept buzzing through my head. And I was like, what is that? And I came home from my route, and my friend had sent me a video, and she said, hey, I saw this and I felt like I was supposed to send it to you. And it was this girl, the same age as my daughter, who had been vegan for 3 years, was experiencing all the same symptoms that my daughter had, and she decided to try a carnivore diet. And I was like, oh, okay, it's a diet. And within a couple weeks, she was able to reverse all of her health issues. And I was like, wait a minute, wait, what? So I spent 3 days doing a massive deep dive rabbit hole into what this carnivore diet was. I read 4 books. I read Judy Cho's book. I read Dr. Sean Baker's, Dr. Paul Saladino's. I started looking at Dr. Ken Berry's videos on YouTube. I listened to Michaela Peterson podcasts. I was just getting to know who she was at the time. Like, it was massive deep dive. And I finally went to my husband and I was like, hey, I think we need to do a complete switch on our diet for our family. And he was like, wait a minute. Does that mean I get to eat bacon and steak again? And I was like, yeah. In fact, that's probably all you're going to eat. And he was like, okay, I'm game. And within a couple weeks, it was a really hard change. I'm not going to lie. Looking back, I would not advise anyone to do it the way that we did it and just kind of did a complete switch. I would advise a more gentle transition, but we just did a complete flip. I was desperate for change, and within a couple of weeks, my daughter started laughing again. Her spirals started dissipating, and life just started coming back in my family's home, my house. And I jumped on it because I wanted to be supportive, and I wanted us all to do it together, because I felt like that would be the easiest way. A family who diets together, stays together. I don't know. Anyway, but one thing that I learned is that nutrition and what you eat is so closely tied to your mental health. I mean, who would have thought? I didn't even think I was an anxious person, but by week 3 of being carnivore, I had the clearest mind. And, as you can see, my outside tremor, that's how I felt on the inside all the time, very anxious, and what I now know is anxiety. I just thought it was just buzzing energy. And my aches and pains all disappeared. My IBS disappeared. Like, so many things resolved within 3 weeks. I was shocked. And I think if there is a massive red pill moment of health, that would be it. It is that there is a time where we need spiritual deliverance. There's a time where we need to go to the mats, in prayer. And then there's a time when we really need to do some nervous system work and, really get our soul in alignment with truth and in alignment with our spirit. But man, our physical bodies affect so much of our way of thinking, our way of feeling, our emotions, even our ability to process thoughts. I thought they were all very separate things and disconnected. And I always focused kind of on the spirit and the mind. Like, as far as emotions go, I never really thought that the physical body and the condition of the physical body played such an influential role on your thought life and your sanity. My goodness. So that was my biggest wow moment, watching my daughter come back to life and watching my family come back to life and feeling amazing. So I was able to retire as a school bus driver. I went back to school and I'm like, I have got to stop listening to all the influencers in the world out there telling me what's healthy and what's not, because one day eggs are really healthy for you, one day they're really bad for you and going to give you heart disease, and then the next day it's like, oh my goodness, eggs are the best thing for your heart, and then the next day it's like, oh my goodness, they're terrible, they're going to clog your arteries. It's like, make up your freaking mind, people. So I decided, since I had tried all these supposedly clean diets and trying to get my health and my family's health back on track, it was time for me to go to school and figure it out for myself. I'm so glad I did. I went to the Nutritional Therapy Association. It was the best decision ever. And through that, I graduated and I decided, you know what? I really want to help other people get healthy too. So that's when I started my online practice, Liberty Wellness & Co. That is growing and booming. I work with clients one-on-one, and then I started the health course. So yeah, that's kind of where we are today. We are still a family that's healing. We're still growing. We're still learning. We've been kind of in the middle at the moment fighting a health battle. And I keep thinking, why aren't all the things working? Even the doctors are like, of course, well, I feel like this is kind of the common response from doctors is, I don't know. I don't know. You're an anomaly. I don't understand what's happening to you. Anyway, so I went down my little rabbit hole of things that I knew, and I was just thinking, okay, maybe, Lord, it's mold. Maybe it's mold. And a storm came through about a month ago, blew off all the siding off the side of our house, and our house is covered in mold. So my gut was right, and my understanding was right, and I was hearing the Lord right. And so now we're just in the process of trying to figure that all out, and just so grateful that we finally have an answer as to why we've been so sick lately. So yeah, it's just never ending. Right when you think you've got something figured out, something else decides to rear its ugly head. So if that's you, again, I hope I'm not the only one who feels like you finally tackle something in life and then something else just kind of kicks the door in and you're like, oh my gosh, there's something else to deal with. It's just the joy of life, the journey, you could say, completely walking counterculturally and pressing into the Lord and the daily battles. But the cool thing is we have a really cool God, a really, really cool God who has our back and who used a storm to blow off the siding to reveal what we had kind of thought we knew, but he just needed to dramatically show us that we were on the right track. So anyway, I hope that a little bit of my story, little tidbits in there, didn't scare you too much, but kind of maybe leave you hanging for some more, because the stories are really cool. I'm hoping to bring on some more people that were involved in some really cool times when God showed up and showed off. He is quite the drama king, I tell you. I have my daughter on here to share her story, and my husband, but I already have 9 recorded episodes with some amazing, wonderful people of all different backgrounds. Courtney Luna, who wrote the beautiful cookbook called Carnivore in the Kitchen. We aren't carnivore really anymore. We're animal based. I believe that carnivore, let me just say this. Okay, carnivore is an amazing therapeutic diet, but it's not for everybody and it's not for all the time. Some people need it all the time, yes, and they thrive on it, and it's great and wonderful, but it's a great healing tool. And her book is phenomenal. It just has some of the most amazing recipes. And then let's see, I have a family counselor that teaches us like why would we even need counseling when we don't need counseling? Talking about mental diagnoses and utilizing nutrition for different things. Fabulous. I mean, we've got a wonderful girl. She's a breath specialist and how to utilize breath to control your nervous system and help heal your body just using something free like your air. It's amazing. Your lungs. That was an incredible episode. We've got some other things coming up, some specialists about children and obesity, puberty, a female hormone specialist, and talking all about the fifth vital sign of life and her favorite ways of learning your cycle and why, as well as very effective modes of healthy birth control. Oh my goodness, that episode is really fun. So I've got a lot in the pike. I actually have, like 10 episodes coming up. So I hope you can tune in. You know what? I would also love to hear your story too, because I know that every single one of us has something amazing. So find me on Instagram or Facebook at Liberty Wellness & Co. Message me your story. I would love to get to know you. If this podcast resonates with you, if you could do me a favor and like it, subscribe to it, and share it. That way we can kind of spread the message of hope and start really lighting a fire in people's faith and challenging their thoughts of what and who God is and how intricately connected our spirit, soul, and body are together. And when all are healed, we are all healthy and whole and able to live free lives. So thank you for joining me today.